Hi, welcome to Hot Literati. Hot Literati is a collective of hot, cool, well-read people. My name is Halo. I'm happy you're here. So today we are reading Anna Karenina still. This is day 3, and I recommend you go watch 1 and 2 if you haven't already, because I'm trying to go in order. And I also recommend using the reading guide at hotliterati.com, the reading companion. I keep saying guide. Which I'll be referencing a lot because it has so much just like great context, breaks down the story into different ways. And yeah, I'm gonna walk you through my annotations of this section, and I'm really excited. So for today, we are going through, I believe we're still in part 1. Yeah, part 1, Roman numerals, chapter 18 through the end of part 1. So in this section, at this point in time, Vronsky has seen Anna, and let me check myself here. Yeah, they've had this like first moment. There's some sparks, and I'm just gonna go in order. And like Levin gets rejected, then gets sad, and has like his moment. But oh my gosh, I just ripped my book. It's so late. Okay, so I'll walk you through the parts that really stuck out to me. Which, gosh, I don't have a lot of annotations from this section. So Anna arrives at the train station, right? And of course that moment happens where the man gets hit by the train. She's like, oh, a bad omen. And the good thing and bad thing about this book and its fame is that I feel like it's really hard to read it without having like a massive spoiler, you know? But yeah, foreshadowing. And she kind of like embraces all of Dolly's family, and Anna becomes this figure that can see through everyone and is very like emotionally intelligent, very present, and she encourages Dolly to take Stiva back, without like suppressing her though, you know. So then chapter 20, Kitty arrives. Kitty meets Anna. Their relationship is really interesting because I feel like, you know, cool older woman who Kitty is like smitten with Vronsky, but then obviously like Vronsky is smitten with Anna, and the relationship between Kitty and Anna is so like, it's really impressive of Tolstoy, I think, to write it, because it is a dynamic that's like present in literature, it's like present in female relationships, I think, sometimes. But I mean, one thing about this book too though is it is like very centered around the male gaze at some points. Like he does show that the women have very little agency in how they navigate society, and like being chosen by a partner and kind of like brokered around by like their parents. But that is like a dynamic that I feel like does exist in the world. So the relationship between them is really interesting. In chapter 21, Dolly comes out of the room, and they've made up kind of off the page, but it's like implied and acknowledged. And then chapter 22 is the ball. I love occasion. I love a party or a ball or a dinner in literature. Like Panin by Nabokov is one of my favorite books, and it all leads up to this like dinner party at the end. I think it's such a fun literary device to have like a celebration that everyone can get ready for, talk about, and then navigate at. And so the ball begins. Kitty's there, and Anna's there as well in a... So Kitty's dress is described as lace Bertha, rosettes, like not tight. And then of course like Anna arrives, and like, this section is interesting about the relationship between the two of them. Kitty had seen Anna every day, was in love with her, and had imagined her inevitably in lilac. But now, seeing her in black, she felt that she had never understood all her loveliness. She saw her now in a completely new and, for her, unexpected way. Now she understood that Anna could not have been in lilac, that her loveliness consisted precisely in always standing out from what she wore, that what she wore was never seen on her. And the black dress with luxurious lace was not seen on her, it was just a frame. And only she was seen, simple, natural, graceful, and at the same time gay and animated. So Anna has a lot of aura. She's presented as just, being so vivacious that even this, like, decadent dress can't, like, she's wearing the dress isn't wearing her. And Kitty, like, looks up to her, which is really beautiful, but then obviously the relationship is a bit complicated with Vronsky. So then chapter 23, we get Vronsky and Kitty dancing. Kitty expects more. Balls like this are so interesting to me because like the dancing is so structured, right? Like there's a caller and like everyone knows the routines and they go to like training for that. It's just so different from the world that we inhabit today. So Kitty's like expecting him to dance with her a lot more, but I believe Anna stays for supper. And no, as it is, I've danced more in Moscow at your one ball than all winter in Petersburg, glancing at Vronsky. I'm a stress before the trip. So you're set on going tomorrow. So he's like so taken up with like her already and like when she's leaving, and she doesn't stay for supper, she leaves. Then chapter 24, we get Levin again, who's the opening line of this chapter is, yes, there's something disgusting and repulsive in me. So, and I don't fit in with other people. It's pride. They say, no, there's no pride in me either. If there were any pride in me, I wouldn't have put myself in such a position. So he's, just such a self-deprecating character. I think I relate to him though. Like I was watching these videos of myself as a child, like really young, and I'm like preparing an audition song, and at the end I'm like, that one's good enough to finally call it a song, you know, like this trait in him I think is like a bit endearing because I feel that way a lot. Who am I and what am I? A worthless man of no use to anyone or anything. And then he remembers his brother, and his character is so interesting to me. So his brother Nikolai is introduced. Nikolai is like so different. He's described as having a passionate nature. They teased him, calling him Noah and the monk. And if you did the Genesis reading guide, you would know Noah in the Bible is this like really fascinating, significant character who is posited as being like an early savior-like figure for like the badness of man through his relationship with God during the flood. So that's like biblical allegory, because someone like Tolstoy would be like super familiar with all of the stories in the Bible. And so in this chapter, Levin is visiting his brother, and his brother is being taken care of by a woman named Masha, who it's implied is a sex worker. And like his relationship between his brother is really interesting. And his brother had been expelled from the university for starting Sunday schools in society aid to poor students, how he'd then become a teacher in people's school, been expelled from there. Later he had been taken to court for something. So then when they're describing Masha or Maria, his brother Nikolai says, and this woman is my life's companion, Maria Nikolaevna. I took her from a house, and his neck twitched as he said it, but I love her and respect her, and I ask everyone who wants to know me to love and respect her. She's the same as my wife, the same. So there you know who you're dealing with, and if you think you're lowering yourself, here's your hat, and there's the door. So he's described as this like really passionate man who is so like countercultural, but also his passions sort of get the best of him, and he can't really like sit inside of any institution and like play that game well, which I think if you're like artistically inclined or even just young, I think that's a really like relatable demeanor. And then his immediate defensiveness of this woman shows that like she in this society isn't considered like respectable, but he's like defensive. And I also think, I don't want to spoil anything, I think this is foreshadowing as well. So then we get to chapter 25. Nikolai and Levin still, and they're discussing the politics of the time. I should look up how to pronounce this, but the musics, because yeah, like slavery I think had just been ended, or like serfdom, slavery had just been like ended in Russia. A lot of this is in the reading companion, so this is like a big political question throughout the book, as well as the rights of women. And it's, the companion describes how this is a really like a big point of transition in like Russian history. So they're discussing this for a bit, and his brother is like very, very passionate. And then like this, I think this is a really good characterization of Nikolai. Konstantin Levin listened to him in that denial of sense in all social institutions, which he shared with him and had often expressed aloud, now seemed disagreeable to him, coming from his brother's mouth. We'll understand it all in the other world, he said jokingly. In the other world, I don't like the other world. No, I don't, he said, resting his frightened, wild eyes on his brother's face. So he's also, or I'll just read the rest of the quote. And it might seem good to leave all this wildness and confusion, other people's in one's own, but I'm afraid of death, terribly afraid of death. He shuddered. Do drink something, want champagne, or else let's go somewhere. Let's go to the gypsies. You know, I come to have a great love of gypsies and Russian songs. So this is the thing we get is like Levin's massive fear of death, because he doesn't have like faith at this point in the book, and he doesn't really know what to believe in. And then finally I've annotated something. So Levin leaves Moscow, arrives at home. So I believe he's already been rejected by Kitty after proposing, maybe. This is chapter 26, and I marked this section. He's in his study. Familiar details emerged: a deer's antlers, shelves of books, the back of the stove with the vent that had long been in the need of repair, his father's sofa, the big desk, an open book on the desk, a broken ashtray, a notebook with his handwriting. When he saw it all, he was overcome by a momentary doubt of the possibility of setting up that new life he had dreamed of on the way. All these traces of his life seemed to seize hold of him and say to him, no, you won't escape us and be different. You'll be the same as you were, with doubts and eternal dissatisfaction with yourself, vain attempts to improve and failures, and an eternal expectation of the happiness that has eluded you and is not possible for you. That was how his things talked, while another voice in his soul said that he must not submit to his past, and that it was possible to do anything with oneself. And listening to this voice, he went to the corner where he had 2 36-pound dumbbells and began lifting them, trying to cheer himself up with exercise. There was a creak of steps outside the door. He hastily set down the dumbbells. So this is a really interesting section where, yeah, he's describing like everything around him and how it's telling him he can't be different, and then he uses physical exercise to try to like change his own mind. And this is the thing I think about a lot, actually, is like the effect of the space that you're in on you, and how like sometimes you do have to remove yourself from something that's familiar or comfortable to really like contemplate or change your mind or go after something. And also the physical aspect. I'm like big on exercise. I try to do cardio every day because it's so good for your brain, and it, you know, it just like does get you to think differently and think better, I think, like happier sometimes. So then chapter 27 is more about the house, about Levin. Chapter 28, we're back with Anna. And one thing that the companion points out, I honestly didn't even notice while I was reading, is that Anna and Levin never meet. So they have these parallel storylines that are like so distant from one another. So Anna sends her husband a telegram, and then she leaves, and they're all saying goodbye to her. You're so strange today, Dolly said to her. Car. Ah, you think so? I'm not strange. I'm back. sad. It happens with me. I keep wanting to weep. It's very stupid, but it passes. And yeah, the way in which Anna talks about herself, I think, is really interesting. Dolly says, "You came here and did a good deed," talking about getting her to stay with her husband. "Don't say that, Dolly. I didn't do anything, couldn't do anything. I often wonder why people have all decided to spoil me. What have I done, and what could I have done? You found enough love in your heart to forgive. Without you, God knows what would have happened." "You're so lucky, Anna," said Dolly. "Everything in your soul is clear and good. Each of us has his skeletons in his soul, as the English say." I thought that was really beautiful. So there's this back and forth, and yeah, I think the way other women view Anna is like really interesting, with a lot of like reverence and admiration. So then skipping ahead. She's on the train now. Anna began to read and understand what she was reading. Anushka was already dozing, holding the little red bag on her knees in her broad hands and their gloves, of which one of which was torn. Anna Arkadyevna read and understood, but it was unpleasant for her to read, that is, to follow the reflection of other people's lives. She wanted too much to live herself. When she read about the heroine of the novel taking care of a sick man, she wanted to walk with inaudible steps around the sick man's room. When she read about a member of Parliament making a speech, she wanted to make that speech. When she read about how Lady Mary rode to hounds, teasing her sister-in-law and surprising everyone with her courage, she wanted to do it herself, but there was nothing to do, and so, fingering the smooth knife with her small hands, she forced herself to read. The hero of the novel was already beginning to achieve his English happiness, a baronetcy and an estate, and Anna wished to go with him to this estate, when suddenly she felt that he must be ashamed, and that she was ashamed of the same thing. But what was he ashamed of? What am I ashamed of? She asked herself in offended astonishment. She put down the book and leaned back in the seat, clutching the paper knife tightly in both hands. There was nothing shameful. She went through all her Moscow memories. They were all good, pleasant. She remembered the ball. She remembered Vronsky and his enamored, obedient face. Remembered all her relations with him. Nothing was shameful. But just there, at the very place in her memories, feelings of shame became more intense, as if precisely then, when she remembered Vronsky's hum, inner voice was telling her, "Warm, very warm, hot." "Well, what then?" she said resolutely to herself, shifting her position in the seat. "What does it mean? Am I afraid to look at it directly? Well, what of it? Can it be that there exist, or ever could exist, any other relations between me and this boy officer than those that exist with any acquaintance?" She smiled scornfully and again picked up the book, but now was decidedly unable to understand what she was reading. Such a good quote, and it makes me think of Tolstoy's definition of art, which is he believed that art is something that infects you with like a feeling in it. So when she's like reading and she's reading about shame, and then she starts to feel shame and then follows her own shame, that's like ripe with what Tolstoy believed art is. And that section also reminds me of Madame Bovary a bit, this feeling of a woman kind of like living through what she's reading and like wanting more. And I also think there's a bit of a reference to Masha, the woman taking care of Nikolai, when it's like the woman taking care of the sick man, she wants to be him, which I think adds some like nice cohesion and a through line to the narratives. Chapter 30. I think she's still on the train, and then she gets off the train, sees her husband, and she notices, I think it's in this section, that she notices, well, her like dissatisfaction with him, because she's been exposed to more, and his ears stick out to her in a way that they never have before. 31, Vronsky, we're back with him, and he follows her to, oh gosh, I don't want to mess up the city. He follows her to Petersburg, and passes her hand, helps her into the carriage. 32, she meets her son. I marked this section. She recalled with astonishment her state yesterday. What happened? Nothing. Vronsky said a foolish thing, which it was easy to put an end to, and I replied, as I ought to have done, to speak of it with my husband is unnecessary and impossible. To speak of it would mean giving importance to something that has none. She recalled how she had told him of a near declaration that one of her husband's young subordinates had made to her in Petersburg, and how Alexei Alexandrovitch had replied that living in society any woman may be subject to such things, but that he fully trusted her tact and would never allow either himself or her to be demeaned by jealousy. So there's no reason to tell him. Yes, thank God, and there's nothing to tell, she said to herself. And I wrote, living in society was an interesting way to, for him to say that, like, oh, living in society, that's gonna happen, because you get, like, high society. It also makes me think of, like, private versus public life, because public life for her and the other characters seems to be, like, balls, the horse races, and where the characters, like, steal these moments of privacy and intimacy, I think are really interesting. Chapter 32. So we're with her husband now, Alexei Alexandrovitch. Every minute of Alexei Alexandrovich's life was occupied and scheduled, and in order to have time to do what he had to do each day, he held to the strictest punctuality. So he's, like, really married to the appearance of everything, to the appearance of high society, his work, to the point where he, like, doesn't really see his family or his wife, and is portrayed as really cold. This is another section that I marked. Vronsky. So Vronsky and his friend are sitting with, Petritsky is the friend's name, I think. And they're with a baroness. Baroness Shilton. And now I'm thinking about, that makes me think about Gilmore Girls for some reason, because the Chilton, right? So this quote, she's talking about her husband. He keeps refusing to grant me a divorce. Well, what am I to do? He was her husband. I want to start proceedings. How would you advise me? Kamerovsky, keep an eye on the coffee. It's boiling over. You can see I'm busy. I want proceedings because I need my fortune. Do you understand this stupidity? That I'm supposedly unfaithful to him, she said with scorn. And so he wants to have use of my estate. Vronsky listened with pleasure to this merry prattle of a pretty woman, agreed with her, gave her half jocular advice, and generally adopted his habitual tone in dealing with women of her kind. In his Petersburg world, all people were divided into two completely opposite sorts. One was the inferior sort, the banal, stupid, and above all ridiculous people who believed that one husband should live with one wife, whom he has married in church, that a girl should be innocent, a woman modest, a man manly, temperate and firm, that one should raise children, earn one's bread, pay one's debts, and other such stupidities. This was an old-fashioned and ridiculous sort of people. But there was another sort of people, the real ones, to which they all belonged, and for whom one had, above all, to be elegant, handsome, magnanimous, bold, gay, to give oneself to every passion, without blushing, and laugh at everything else. And I wrote that it was the lonely way of being in the world like that. Now I think you get more foreshadowing, and I'm not going to say to what exactly because I don't want to spoil it, but I think that this section really shows Vronsky's youth, and I think that this is like a perspective that's always sort of happening in society. Is like, he says it early in the book, of reactive versus like progressive, right? But sometimes I think like looking at the old institution being like, oh, everyone that does that is like dumb, and like these are the new ways, the in vogue ways to exist in the world. It's this like constant tension that you see throughout history in like any society, and it's so interesting. And that's the end of that section. Yeah, thank you for listening. Please comment your thoughts on Anna Karenina, especially if you're doing the reading companion, because I'd love to know how it's helping you. And yeah, see you all next time.